Hello.
Hello, I'm Ruben Perez.
And I'm Sonia Holycross.
Welcome. We have 5 minutes before we start, and we are going to have our 25th year anniversary of AHA Process. And so thank you for joining us.
Very much. If you could put down in the chat box where you're located, that would be great. Also, in what year did you start using AHA Process materials?
So while you're putting those things in the chat box, for now, just know that everybody who's coming into the live stream is muted, and your cameras are not being utilized throughout the entire thing. We'll be using live stream. Now I forgot. StreamYard. We're on StreamYard today with Facebook Live. And I am a consultant with AHA Process. And Sonia, you want to tell
about myself? Yeah. I am a Getting Ahead graduate. I'm an AHA consultant and an education and development coordinator, again, in Troy, Ohio. Super excited to be here to celebrate 25 years of making this world a better place.
So it is 3:57 Elvis time, or Central Time, and we will be starting. I heard that expression a couple of days ago, and I think I'll use it for the rest of my life. We're going to be doing the full intro in about 3 minutes. In the meantime, do what Sonia said and post where you're from, what materials you've been using from AHA, and anything else you want to add to the comment section.
Nice. I see that we have somebody, Susie, actually out of Highland, Texas. Do we have some Ohio? Fellow OH, can I get an IO in the comment box?
So Ruby Payne has already put a message in the comment box about going to ahaprocess.com/AHA25 in order to you get to look at some videos that we're going to be teasing later today, because we're not going to see into the full versions, but there is a form at the very bottom for you to get your anniversary gift for being a part of such a wonderful company. Oh, a very special person is here, T. Bowman.
Yes.
Ruby's husband.
Definitely. We have Karen from Watertown, New York. Welcome. Michelle from Highland, Texas as well.
So Karen, are you, what part of the materials from AHA Process have you used, and how long ago did you start with us?
We got Kim from Duncan, Oklahoma. It's awesome. And that is a good segue question. Let us know what materials you're using. Let us know what sectors that you're in. As we all know, our work goes across a lot of sectors, so it'll be very interesting to kind of celebrate those. 25 years is beautiful. You have ups and downs, but we have grown, definitely. We got Judy from Baytown. Kara from Highland, Texas. Come on, my Ohio folks, where are you at? So, Ruben.
We have less than a minute. And
less than a minute. Super exciting. Beatrice from Norman, Oklahoma.
I think I was snowed in once in Oklahoma. Was that right? No, Ohio.
Probably.
I don't remember anymore.
We just got unsnowed, actually. It thawed. Thank God for 60 degrees. We had about 2 feet of snow.
Okay, it's exactly 4 o'clock Elvis time. 25th anniversary of AHA Process. We have about 2 minutes to introduce ourselves, because we're going to try to keep this within the hour. So Sonia, would you tell us a little bit about yourself so that people know who you are?
Yeah, so again, I'm a Getting Ahead graduate. That's my most honored achievement. I work for Partners in Hope. It's a nonprofit in Troy, Ohio. I am an AHA consultant, and I also am considered our community trainer. Ruben, how about yourself?
My name is Ruben Perez. I started in education in 1988, and in the early 2000s, I took a workshop with Ruby, and shortly thereafter became a consultant for K through 12, and now do a various amount of workshops. I've been there so long, I'm a part of the furniture now. And I also do consulting from, one-on-one training with the school districts and also with the large audiences. So we are trying to rush through our introductions in order to get to the next part. And so for right now, it is our 25th anniversary. We're going to celebrate. I have a little bottle of bubbly that I'm bringing out, and I poured myself some. Sonia, would you like some champagne, by the way?
I would love some champagne.
Oh, cool. Here you go.
Perfect.
There you go, dear.
Thank you.
Enjoy. Toast to everyone. That's our virtual handoff. So we're going to bring Ruby Payne online, the woman herself who started this incredible company. And we're going to have a short little interview with her. And I do believe Sonia is going to start us off.
I am. So, Ruby, what led you to focus on poverty rather than cultural issues?
Well, I think two things in particular. One was that I had been in college and I lived in Haiti for 3.5 months down in the Caribbean to study poverty and service. And while I was there, I met a very wealthy man. So I studied wealth too. Okay. He was an Italian aristocrat. And then I came back to the United States and met my former husband, whose name was Frank Payne. He was a mix of Cherokee and Caucasian. And what I saw was when you're in survival environments, they use, regardless of where you are in the world, some of the behaviors are the same because it's just how you survive. And I saw some of those. And then he took a job in the Chicago Board of Trade, and I saw them using wealthy people there, the same behaviors I'd seen among the wealthy people in Haiti. So that was why I ended up concentrating more on class instead of culture.
You know, when I first took your workshop, I was really stunned by the ability to isolate economic diversity outside of racial and cultural diversity. And I thought you just put it on the map in a way that nobody else has ever attempted it. And now you've reinvented yourself once again, which is extremely rare within the consultant umbrella of anything in education, because you've gone from putting poverty on the map, or financial poverty, and now emotional poverty, and you published 2 books. So that is one of the resources that comes from the foundation of the very original mothership work. So now that you have a stronger kind of monochromatic focus on just emotional poverty, and I know we're still at the beginning stages, where do you see that going? And how do you see it being utilized?
Well, one of the things we noticed in our work on communities with getting ahead and adult development, and I noticed in the school business, and I noticed that what tended to derail people were the emotional pieces, okay? And I realized I didn't understand those very well. So I started reading in the clinical research. And then we had a gentleman say to one of our trainers, he said, you know, you all expect that everybody will build their resources. They start at 0 and get to 5 or whatever. He said, but some of us didn't start at 0. We started at -3 and -4. And if we get to +2, we've made a lot of progress. He said, my mother was a meth addict and I was born with an addiction. And he said, if I get to 2, I made it as far as people who got to 5. And I started thinking, we don't ever talk about, we assume that there's basic structures in place for emotions, but we don't ever talk about how do you build them when your environment didn't provide them. And that's what I'm really fascinated with right now. How do you build that? Because the basis of all wellness is safety and belonging, and the basis of all learning is basically safety and belonging. So that's how it took me there.
After 25 years, what has been some of the biggest surprises along the way?
How much leadership changes. It's constantly in flux and constantly changing. And so it's really difficult to get continuity over time. And you have to be at something for a while before you get continuity. A guy out of California says, it takes 20 to 25 years to become an overnight success. And it takes time, you know, and when leadership changes all the time, it makes it hard to get strong movements, solid movement.
Well, thank you for those. That was very, very good. We're going to move on and we're going to see a snippet of a trailer. So I want to say just capturing the essence of 25 years was more than difficult as you can imagine, and we had to leave out more than we could put in. For that, we apologize, but we thank every individual, organization, sector, group for the incredible, valuable contributions that you've made throughout the last 25 years. To all the Getting Ahead graduates, the certified trainers, facilitators, customers, partners, authors, consultants, and employees, we appreciate all the life-changing gifts of your relationships, experiences, and knowledge and support. We trust that you will take this snapshot just as that, a simple snapshot. It's taken all of us to get where we are on this journey to reduce poverty, improve individual resources, and strengthen communities. We're going to head and watch
In
it.
that amount of time, one of the things that's happened is we've had numerous publications, as you can look at our webpage and see. We've been internationally all over the place. In 2005, we sold 1 million copies of A Framework for Understanding Poverty. And New York Times in 2007 wrote an article about me. In 2010, we had several deaths along the way. In 2013, I remarried T. Bowman. And in 2014, my son, Tom, married Carlos, and they live in Spain now.
So that's just 30 seconds of a bigger video that explains what's been going on in the last 25 years. So the full videos, all the full videos of anything you see today is at ahaprocess.com/aha25, and that link is on the chat box. So Ruby is now going to interview some of the consultants that are within the company and have been utilized for some time. And as a consultant myself, I just want to verify and testify that it is incredible to work with someone who listens with her heart, with her mind, and also her wisdom. And so we're going to be sharing a little bit of that with you now.
So, Ray, one of the questions I have for you, you've been with me for a while, and one of the questions I have is, what ways did you use the information in Framework?
Life-changing. Those are the only two words I can come up with. Life-changing. See, when I started at AHA, I was stuck. I was stuck because there was part of my bio, a part of my childhood that I didn't want to deal with. And so the format for presenting at AHA was you present the fact, and that was easy to do, and then you tell a story. Well, I had a great story. My mother, I lived in poverty. We were in the projects. I had lots of siblings. My mother never went, the classic line of the mother and the family living in poverty. But there was a beginning to that story, and I didn't want to talk about it because I was ashamed. I kept it hid. I didn't deal with it. And that is how we got into poverty. There's a beginning of everything, especially the beginning of people who move into poverty. And so I finally fessed up. I came out of the closet, as I say, and I started to tell the audience that my father died 4 months before I was born. Why was I ashamed of that? I don't know, but I was. And I didn't want to tell that story, but I had to. So I told the story. And of course, people were just mesmerized by it. But I also learned from AHA the value of not leaving people in a sad place, because my story was sad. So from Ruby, I learned how that comic relief needed to be used. So I was delivering this horrible story, and then at the end, I'd make them laugh. And so the outcome of that, and I'm trying not to take up all the time, is I ended up doing research on my father, who died in an incident called Port Chicago. I went to the site and I met some of the men who died there. I authored 2 books around that story. And right now I am working with Gold Star children and families who have similar stories of traumatic loss. So when I say it was life-changing, it put my life on a different road. Besides, as Ruben said, enjoying being a consultant with AHA and being treated just wonderfully well. I had some wonderful experiences, and I'm still can say thank you, Ruby Payne and AHA Process. I love where I am now because I want 2 minutes.
All righty. Thank you, Ray. Okay. And now we were going to talk to Kim Ellis, I think. I think Kim's next on the docket. So I think Ruth's going to bring her forward and we'll talk about Kim. Kim started with me at the very get-go, at the very beginning, when we started trying some of this stuff out in the classroom with real life children. And Kim is now teaching high school again and loving it. She's been an assistant soup. She's been so many principal, and she's back teaching high school again. And we'll see if we can get her on. But one of the things about it is that if we have had just so many good consultants over the year, we've had 7,000 people come on board as trainers, and it's been wonderful. Ruben, why don't you say a little bit about your experience as a consultant while we're waiting for Kim?
I'm going to rob it straight from Ray. The workshop in and of itself changed my life because it put so many things in a perspective from an angle I never saw before. You walked into, and I've talked to you about this before. You walked into mainstream society as an adult, as a result of getting out of the Mennonite society, and so growing up and being told what to think about racial and cultural issues, and not ever being fed information about economic diversity. When I had your perspective, when you first put it together in such a way that kind of eliminated the racial and cultural noise from the diversity topic, even though it's valid, even though it's a significant part of the conversation, isolating it away to see how economic diversity is a part of everybody's story, everybody's background, and taking away that noise just put some clarity so the delivery was clean, and you're able to put everybody on a more equal plane, regardless of background. I think that for me was the explosion in my head that totally changed my career.
Well, racial diversity and economic diversity are interlaced. They very much are, as is cultural and ethnic. Somebody asked me about that the other day, and I said, basically, the reality is this. At the very bottom of any survival, I don't care whether you're in Haiti, whether you're in, I've done work in China, India, it doesn't matter where you are. At the very bottom of the reality is food. And when you're hungry, that determines a lot of what you're going to do. And hunger is a thief. It takes away your moral code. It takes away your ability to think. It takes away everything from you. And at the bottom line, then it determines, regardless of where you are, how you're going to negotiate your reality. And I think then as you get further up the stability, then there's differences in how you interact. But it's a reality. So I think that we have seemingly lost Kim.
Apparently.
So, okay. Before we transition, if I could just interject as someone who's come from all the way from getting ahead to being a consultant, stellar work, again, life-changing, but being able to allow me to have a second start in my life, to be able to have language to discuss and talk about what I've been through. Again, you know my story. I wouldn't have made it through college if I had not been introduced to getting ahead. And I want to say kudos to you, because not only talking about bringing people to the table, but actually bringing people to your table first, breaking bread, building relationships with me and many other getting ahead graduates. And we see a path. There can be a future. You can aspire to be what you want to be. And again, you changed so many lives, Ruby. Kudos.
Okay.
But I don't think, I have to say, it's a little embarrassing for me because I think it took a lot of people. Do you know what I mean? You never do anything like this by yourself.
That's true.
And I think, and I love your story. I almost wrote you the other day because New York Times or Wall Street Journal one had an article, and I thought, they said training people, giving people information in poverty does no good. And I thought, I need to get them hooked up with Sonia, right? But
anytime, definitely.
So one of the questions in the chat box, we have a little time apparently.
Nice.
One of the questions in the chat box was, how in the world did you come up with the name of the company? They understand what it means, But where did you get the name?
I'm sorry I named it AHA, actually. What happened is because then nobody at the company knew how to answer the phone, AHA. It was, I had one employee say, this is AHA. And I said, no, it's not, And the people would write on their evaluations, this was an AHA for me. This information was just overwhelming. It was an AHA for me. And so we got that so much on evaluations, I called it that. But really, if I had it to do over, I wouldn't have. Nobody knows what it means.
Understandable.
Yeah. And Sonia, I think Sonia's done as a consultant too. Let me ask Sonia one real quick question. Sonia, as a consultant, what would you say? How has the work changed you as a consultant?
Oh, it's actually allowed me, and especially if you think about, like, take this year and the controversy with George Floyd and all the politics, it's helped me to be able to navigate systems and look at both sides. I now sit as a human relations commissioner appointed by our mayor in our town, and to be able to advocate on both sides is a priceless gift. And to understand structural issues versus systemic issues, and to bring the 4 areas of research to actually create bridges to solve problems. That's in a nutshell what being a consultant has done for me. And it's solidified that I am the expert.
Okay. I'm going to bring up one more thing and then we'll switch to the next section.
Okay.
Ruby, I'm going to out you a little bit. So at one of our consultant meetings we had before the pandemic happened, we were all telling a little bit about ourselves, and then we started talking about our work with AHA. And when I spoke to you afterwards, you said something that kind of hit me like a ton of bricks, because I was blindsided that you did not know this. What you said was, I was shocked how many people saw this work as spiritual.
Oh.
And for many of us, it is. For many of us, it transcends the physical. It transcends the mental, the intellectual, the research. It transcends how it goes into how you feel and what you believe. At least it does for me profoundly. So, 1, do you remember what happened that night? And 2, have you come to understand better why it is spiritual for a lot of people?
Yes, for those of you in the audience, we were working with consultants, and we have about 40 people who do consulting. Many of them work in another position, but they do consulting for us. And many of them, we did an activity, what stands out for you? And I was amazed at the number of people who referenced their faith as this being a deep calling for them, and the number of people who cried, had tears in their eyes. And I think that one of the things is that for me, it's very spiritual as well. It's a cause, and it is, I am heartbroken as I look around and see the amount of talent that exists in poverty, and people never get the opportunity to develop it because the environment doesn't make it possible. It just breaks my heart. And we lose just unbelievable levels of talent and meaning and purpose simply because the opportunity isn't there. So I was gratified, and for all of you out there listening who've used the work, I am certain in my heart that you have a spiritual basis as well, or you wouldn't devote so much time to it. But yes, I was surprised to hear people articulate it. I knew it was true for me, but I didn't know it was true for others.
I know Ray concurs in the chat box that it was definitely a spiritual journey for her, and I as well. Definitely. So we are going to watch another video. Again, 25 years. There's a lot of relationships building, ups and downs. We have good times, we have bad times, and now we want to honor some wonderful, amazing people. As Ruby said, it wasn't just me, it was a village. And so we want to honor those people. And again, if you would put your comments in the chat box of your best memories as well, we will take a look at that.
So if you were lucky enough to see any of these people who presented to you, they are gone, but certainly not forgotten. And they live in the walls and every cell of AHA, very much within the foundational format of who we are today. We're now going to watch another little teaser video, only 30 seconds of a much longer video. It's going to be some in-house people, some of the people from AHA Process, congratulating Ruby on her 25 years of success. And it's not a full-length video. Again, it'll be at ahaprocess.com/aha25 if you want to see us truly give our heartfelt thanks to Ruby.
Congratulations on 25 years of changing lives.
You're amazing, and I love you.
I often refer to the AHA process as like the WD-40 of public policy.
And I'm looking forward for another 25 years. Wait a minute, I can't live that long.
Congratulations for 25 years, and I look forward to many more.
I love you, and I love working with your work.
We appreciate you so much.
Here's to 25 more.
Wow.
Let's lift our glasses and celebrate 25 wonderful years.
You know, I noticed a comment, Joe, you said a quote in many Getting Ahead groups. This is not a class, we're a family. And I definitely feel that.
Amen.
Mm-hmm. So let's see any other quotes in the book. Just joined her. Ah, love her. Quotes.
So we're going to have what's next?
Yeah. Rita is acknowledging her Ray is acknowledging her relationship with Rita and that she will love her forever, as we all will.
And who Rita was on stage, she was also off stage. The girl was genuine through and through.
Definitely. So now we are going to do interviews. Well, Phil Duvall and Terry DeRussy-Smith are going to come on and do interviews. And again, we're talking about getting ahead, being a family. Here's our father, right? Ruby's the mom and Phil's the dad.
Oh boy, don't get me started.
Phil, what attracted you to this work, and what were the first actions you took?
Well, I have been working in the addiction field for quite some time when I ran across Ruby's work. And I thought I knew something about poverty. I grew up in India and saw that, and I worked a bunch of jobs for 12 years with all kinds of working class folks. And we knew in our agency, Terry and I worked together at McCad, that a lot of our clients were from poverty. But I think what Ruby's book did for us, or for me, was to put well, she called the book Framework, right? So it really put things in a way you could use them. You know, broke down, made these, chunks of information. You could use it in different ways. You could innovate with it. And so reading her book, I thought, boy, we ought to do what the private sector does. And that's they have what they call an employee, the customer life cycle. How do you make your customers happy so when they walk out the door and spend their money, they're delighted? But for us, it was about treating our clients from poverty in a more skillful way, a more loving way, and in a way that was going to be more successful for them. And so we did all kinds of stuff. First of all, we had to change the person sitting at the front window because she would give the look, the look. When you have a 13-year-old daughter, you get the look. Well, they would get the look from this woman because they weren't speaking standard American English. So that was destroying a chance at respectful relationships. We were disrespecting people right off the bat. So that changed. Our staff, Terry and I did our first quote bridge training together with our staff. And then we kind of went through what we did, and we put toys and coffee in the waiting room. We broke down our formal register information, turned some of it into videos so people could watch videos. They didn't have to read all this pages and pages of text. Changed the way we did prevention work. Changed the way our offices were set up. We helped people with transportation. We bought a beat-up old red van, and Bob drove the people to AA meetings and brought them in for us. And we ended up having houses for recovering women. We just tried to smooth and put a cushion in there so that when people were addressing their addiction issues, they could find it easier. And that really worked pretty well. And so we were pretty pleased with that. And then we began boasting about it in our community. And then we had a community initiative going. So that's how it went for us.
Nice. Thank you for sharing.
So Terry, I was present when Bridges made its announcement that it existed, because I was on the education side and you both were on the social reform, prison system side, which was a complete surprise to me. I was totally ignorant it even existed until that one conference we had. So I know my mind was absolutely blown to see the work apply beyond education and into much more real life situations with adults and other organizations. So talk to me like I'm a 4-year-old. What were some of the surprises that you had along the way since you both started this journey from the grassroots?
Well, I'm assuming that people know something about Bridges, and hello to everyone. So that, here Phil and I were in the public sector. We were in an addiction agency. Most of our partners in that community were in the public sector. So the first surprise was that the private sector, Cascade Engineering, a plastics firm and engineering firm and manufacturing actually in Grand Rapids, was the first to actually use Bridges in a way that they actually got great outcomes. So they had a welfare to career program, and they were doing terribly. They had 250 employees, and they were losing 80% of them within the first 2 weeks. And later they told us they hadn't understood what poverty was, and they hadn't designed things to match their population. So that the private sector used our work to flip retention rates was first. That surprised us. And of course, that later led to workforce stability and getting ahead in the workplace and so many solid things. The second thing I always joke about is that Canada asked anyone from the United States to come up there and talk about poverty, because when I got there, I realized that Canadians didn't really respect how folks in policy and legislation was in terms of public policy of poverty. And still, it's true, our federal poverty policies are not stellar. And then that led to other countries being involved. So I don't think Phil and I ever thought this was going to be an international thing, or Ruby either, perhaps. Maybe she did. She has that larger vision sometimes. So it's the third thing is that the community of practice, as Ruby said, it's not us, it's not the authors. I mean, it's anyone but us. In every sector in 9 countries or more, using this work so innovatively and being willing to share with one another and being willing to expand their community collaboratives to include individuals in poverty who are getting ahead, graduates or otherwise. That kind of a model is so inspirational, isn't it? I mean, that is the stamp of Bridges, is that it builds equity and voice in communities. And I want to thank, and Phil, I know you do too, and Ruby, all of those people who have been, as Ruby said, leadership does change, but it still keeps moving. And we think there's something about Bridges that just keeps moving. And there's a couple more, and then I'll stop. That the state of Ohio passed legislation based on Bridges. And of course, that led to Bridges across every divide and more conversation about policy and how we get to change policy. But lastly, that Bridges became a movement. And I think you guys have heard me say a million times, I asked Phil, how long do you think it's going to be before we have to get day jobs again? This is when we quit our jobs at McCad to train. And he said, maybe a couple of years, who knows? And it's been so long. It's been over 20 years. And it's not just been stagnant. I once told Phil, it seems like sometimes people want to just, or policies or whatever, just take a hammer and hit it onto Bridges, and all it does is splatter into a million pieces and go out and play it elsewhere. It just has a heart of its own. And so I think the final thing about that is that Gender, the independent researchers that looked at Getting Ahead in Bridges, said that Getting Ahead in Bridges is a relational model, and we love that. You can change policy, you can change structure, but what is actually happening between human beings and communities? And we're proud of that. And we are proud to be working with all of you all of these years. And we hope to have many more.
Well, I stand very proudly by your side. Phil is now going to interview some of our warrior champions. And I say warrior champions because Sonia is one of them. So I'm speaking about her behind her back to her face. And and these are people who have gone through the Getting Ahead program and have improved their situation with the lessons from Getting Ahead. And a lot of it has to do with facing some realities that all of us find difficult, but some people come through like rainbows shining beyond just brilliant. And so these are Phil's people on his side
Right.
of the
Well, thanks for that introduction. I must say that the Getting Ahead work is just wonderful because so many people get engaged in working on the poverty issues in the communities, and they really need to hear people that are living it, have lived it, and have the same language and can bring all their gifts and talents to this. And I know you've all heard me say this a million times, but people think of people in poverty as the problem, and we think of people in poverty as problem solvers. And without them, the Bridges work couldn't get done. So it's really a pleasure for me to introduce some people from Ontario, where they're doing really exciting things. I got to see some videos that they had done. I got a hold of them and found out all the good stuff they were doing. And so it's really good to have you here. Lorraine Kelly is a facilitator, and she's sort of the organizer up there. And Lorraine, I wonder if you could just tell people, how you're using Getting Ahead up there.
Okay, no problem. So I just want to talk a little bit. I'm going to try to capture 4 years in 2 minutes, so bear with me. So the Getting Ahead alumni group, we've reformed after they've completed the program. So they meet every 2 months. To discuss various community opportunities that members bring to the group. So the alumni decide amongst themselves who's interested and who will represent the group at each event. So most of the alumni attend their own smaller groups for support. And our Getting Ahead alumni created a video that captured the essence of the program. I believe that you alluded to that earlier, Phil, and then the link will be shared in the chat. So the community's demand for the GA alumni perspectives and voices became so far-reaching that outside agencies were seeking meetings from the agent for the agencies' benefit to review client services and agency processes that needed to include the voice of the people using their services. So the graduates have now made many connections within the community with representatives, agencies, and political leaders. They have educated them about the GA program, and they've requested their assistance to help build their social capital. So some community leaders have offered their support and accepted invitations to speak at the graduations and share how their services are impacting poverty reduction in our region. So some of the community-based committees that our GA alumni are sitting on, we have the Mayor of Oshawa Spirit of Service, and that program is to reduce homelessness, and the GAP committee, which some of our members sit on it. And that committee was created it was a general advisory committee to identify and close gaps in service delivery, as well as the Better Health Network. So they work with the health department and working on different health issues impacting some of our Getting Ahead alumni. Our alumni have been involved in multiple social movements, and their voices have included legislation against human trafficking. We have a local member of parliament who introduced a private members bill aimed at combating human trafficking after hearing from members of the community about the issue, and that includes one of our Getting Ahead graduates. So the alumni have raised their voices to be heard by politicians when discussing housing issues and homelessness, and they've actively used their confidence to participate in research studies and sit on community committees where they're sharing lived experiences and are helping to create a better human services within the region. And so their work have continued to be very impactful and has inspired so many towards acting on issues that impact their own lives. So we have a very active Getting Ahead group build of many talented experts of their own lives that are out there creating this movement, as I heard you guys alluded to earlier on. So we are very grateful to have that program in the region. I want to thank you guys for creating such a program that's letting people know, that their voices matter.
Well, thanks so much, Lorraine. You really emphasized that point that people can really have an influence on policy and the bigger issues too. So you covered it all, and I just think that's a really great example. Now we can talk to a couple of Getting Ahead graduates, and I see Christina Lynn McGowan here, and I think what's happening is Tosin, I'm not sure of her last name.
Adiemo,
yeah.
Yes.
She keeps coming off and on the camera, so I don't
Yes.
know if she's there.
I think her children, yeah.
Hi.
Hey, we've got you, so why don't you go first and tell us how Getting Ahead worked for you?
As a Getting Ahead alumni or as a former Getting Ahead students, Getting Ahead helped a great deal. In class, we were able to see the bridges between the lower classes and the upper classes, and how people in poverty were being perceived. But I like how you said is that, okay, people in poverty are not actually, they are actually problem solvers. So we're able to see the bridges between them and able to see how they fit into society as well and their importance in the society. So Getting Ahead as a person helped me to leverage on all my resources, set a set goal for myself, and actualize it. So as an alumni, we are getting there gradually.
Well, thank you. It was a little hard to hear you at times, but I think we got the gist of what you were saying. And I think what we'll do is ask Christina Lynn McGowan if she wants to say a few words and tell us how you use the Getting Ahead learning experience.
Well, may I first say thank you for the honor and privilege to be amongst such amazing individuals as you all have proven to be. I'd like to say, in the beginning, I thought that, they say knowledge is power. And as one who has lived experience growing up in foster care and group homes and experiencing homelessness, I presumed that just surviving what life dished you was power enough. Eventually, I grew, got married, had many children, and was divorced and became a single parent. Yet I could not understand why some of the same experience seemed to confront me in a vicious cycle, hindering me from succeeding. So I proceeded to go to college and determined that my life experience would be justified if it were used to help others. So I went into social work with a focus on serving the homeless and those battling poverty and domestic violence. Now, the education I've received to work in my field, it was wonderful, but the same issues of unemployment, generational circumstances, and poverty still plagued my life. The most difficult thing to accept for me was that I could only pass to my children what I knew. There was knowledge I did not possess that would change the narrative for my children, and Getting Ahead was the knowledge tool that brought about transformation for my family, for myself, and those I serve in the field. Getting Ahead brought an understanding of how knowledge can liberate, equip, and change the narrative of our lives, impacting our future when we apply it. GA is a transferable tool for my family and those I work with through volunteerism at the local mission, the community food bank, and groups I serve through faith-based organizations. Getting Ahead gave me the opportunity to be heard, to be informed, and to recognize the power I possess to speak to my situation. It acknowledged me as an expert in the areas of my experience and gave me a voice to affect change and facilitate my success. I defined my strengths and weaknesses, perceptions and hidden rules that hindered or supported me moving forward. A full understanding of vulnerability and power, resources and goals were reached as I was given tools to develop a personal plan to reach my self-determined goals from a position of strength and knowledge. One of those goals was to address my health, and I lost 60 pounds. Yay me. I will not accept the status quo. Societal or economic standards, mentalities, or attitudes that caused me to assume I was powerless to affect my condition. Getting ahead in a just getting by world has equipped me to take responsibility, to reposition myself in the driver's seat of my future, and designate where I want to live, work, and progress. As a former participant and a self-proclaimed individual who has profited from this exceptional program, I want to take the opportunity to thank all the experts over the past 25 years who gave time, energy, experience, and wisdom that made GA such a phenomenal experience for myself and countless others. Thank you for your honesty, your determination, and integrity, making this such a powerful collaboration of insight and liberating information. To those who facilitate, those who labor, to those who realize the need for this program and the wealth of information it could potentially provide to a demographic, a community that had lost its voice, thank you. I am here as a testament that this program works, lives are being changed, past, present, and future, and for that, I thank you.
Wow, thank you so much for those remarks, Christina Lynn. That was beautifully said. So Ruben and Sonia, do you want to come in and do you have any questions, or is it time to move on? I know we have a schedule to keep to, but if you have any remarks, and thanks to the folks from Canada, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for all the good work you're doing up there.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys for this. This is an amazing program, and we do have quite the wait list of people now that we have moved it to our online platform. We just couldn't let COVID win, and so we are now doing this twice a week, and it's going really well. And so we just want to thank you guys for providing all the online materials as well. Having those materials was really helpful, because we needed that visual, and we're really trying not to make it. We're trying to keep our round table, kitchen table concept virtually, if there's such a thing. But but it's still having the intended impact.
Thank you guys very much. Again, amazing. I concur, Christina Lynn. That was beautifully said. On behalf of all of us as Getting Ahead graduates, thank you for what you said. We're going to bring Ruby back, and Ruby is going to ask Kim a couple questions.
Okay. And Kim, we found Kim.
There she is.
You found me.
So Kim, just to say a little bit, Kim started with me at the very get-go when we started working with students to see what would work and what wouldn't. So Kim, talk about this, how you used it, your personal story here, kinds of things and how you're using it right now teaching high school kids. So a little bit of stuff to start.
Okay. So, a number of things have happened after having been through so many different roles as a teacher and a principal, assistant superintendent. I came back to my first love as a classroom teacher, and watching and being able to implement once again the strategies and all the components, that we've put in place, or you have put in place. So thank you so much for dragging me that first time to that first training on Feuerstein's work to get, mess my head up entirely. But that's okay, because we had kids that then became successful because of the strategies that were put in place, and the consistency that was behind that implementation is key. So arriving as a teacher, I took on a whole different role. And I can say they gave me the worst classes possible. I had one class that out of 20, I only had 3 kids that were not special ed, and the other 2 classes were full of athletes. They thought the athletes would get me. They didn't know I loved sports. So, but with them, the very first day, teaching them the voices, teaching them registers of language, teaching them the hidden rules of my classroom, and then setting our key focus word, and they chose integrity. By the end of each class session, we had a frame that we were able to carry on our classes, and I have had the most wonderful year so far. They work for me. They're doing what they need to do. The respect is there. You don't have to try to bribe kids. I think when the respect is there, and you set that respect as that adult voice, and I think to me that's one of the most powerful things that has happened within the team and within my classes.
And so how did you use the information from a framework for understanding poverty personally?
Okay. That's a hard one, Ruby. You know, when I first met you, the very first time I heard you in Travis Elementary's library, when I needed to get to a football game and you were talking, and I said, Ruby, I don't want to hear this. Been there, done that, don't want to do it again. And you said, have you been poor or did you live in poverty? I lived in a poor life. My mom had lived in poverty. And what I learned from Framework was all about poverty and mom's life and dad's life even, and the choices that they made. And that was so powerful to me to be able to put that into a frame, because I never worried about a roof over my head. I had running water and they didn't inside the house. But I have to tell you, when you started with emotional poverty, although I understood mom with Framework, I was able to forgive her after emotional poverty. It helped me see that what was inside her probably wasn't going to ever change. And I couldn't change that no matter how hard I tried. So, love you, girl. You know that. Let's see, 25 more. Okay.
All I can say is those high school kids in Oklahoma are lucky to have you.
Well, I'm lucky to have them. It has truly been a blessing to me.
And here's Ruben.
Hello, we're back. What are you doing?
I'm using my cheese board. I have a cheese plate. Would you like one?
Oh, I think it's on something very special.
It's on my 25th anniversary cheese board. I keep calling it a cheese board. It's a cheese board to me, but it's a cutting board. And you can, how do we register, Ruben, if they would like one in the audience?
If you go to the same link that has been repeatedly put on in the chat box, ahaprocess.com/aha25, you too can have a cutting board that doubles as a beautiful cheese board.
And that's right. But grapes and cheeses are not with the product.
Is that cheddar?
This is cheddar.
I want some.
Definitely. Here you go.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Wonderful, isn't it? I tell you, I broke a lot of hidden rules going to get my gourmet cheeses. They do not normally provide cheeses in grams. I didn't want that much because I wanted to fit my board.
So along with the cutting board, we have a sensational phone holder that looks like this. Let me give you a sideways view.
Oh yeah. Do you want to use my phone?
Hold your phone. But I cannot find my phone. Can I borrow yours?
Yeah, here.
Oh, thank you. Here it is. So it looks like this.
It's so cool.
It is so cool because it's like a little stress ball beanbag.
And it can be a paperweight. Totally paperweight and a phone holder. It's like a twofer.
Or like a little pillow for your nap.
That's right. It could be a neck pillow.
So before we go,
yes,
are there any questions from the audience to anybody in AHA, the process of AHA? There was a question for Ruby earlier in the thing, and I couldn't get to it. It was, how did you meet Phil? Oh, how interesting that both of you are on our eye. What happened?
You want me to tell that story, or you want Phil?
Both
Phil,
of you.
why don't you tell the story.
Okay. Well, I'm hugely interested that Ruby and Ruth come from Morrow County. It's one of the poorest counties in the state. It meets all the criteria for being an Appalachian county. It's just not adjacent to the others, so it doesn't get any of the Appalachian money that flows. And they're from a Mennonite community. I think AHA process, the subtitle under it should be managed by Mennonites or something like that. There's a bunch of Mennonites in this group. So, her dad was a preacher at the Mennonite church, forget the name of it. And I would sometimes go out there and do workshops, on addiction issues and prevention and so on, and got to know them a little bit. And so I got a hold of Ruby's book. And Ruby, I guess you came to visit your mom. I didn't know you were going to be there, but one day you showed up and said, "How are you using it?" And we sat in my office with Terry, and we had done quite a bit with it. It made a big difference at our place. We were getting better outcomes. That all the key elements of it just formed that language we keep talking about. And you can use it in all kinds of settings, in all kinds of sectors. And one of my biggest regrets is, and I'm not giving up on this for another 25 years, until people in the addiction field use this more. Because it helped us help people get sober. We used a lot of the ideas in the prevention work and the treatment work. And I won't go into the details on any of that, that'd be too long. But we ended up starting Ohio's first alternative school for recovering kids. And a lot of that had to do with the way we were working the poverty issues. So thanks, Ruby.
Yeah, and Phil, you left out one part of it. Phil used to call my mom for baby beds and other stuff he needed for his clients. And you need to know that my mom and dad, they're both passed now, but neither of them read the book. Okay. But they love to give it away. My dad said, "Hey, I'd write a book too if I had time, but the bottom line is that they gave it away. And I think, Phil, you called for a baby bed, and my mom said, "Well, my daughter wrote a book. Do you want a copy?" If you wanted that baby bed, you had to say yes. So I think that's how Phil got the book initially. Yeah.
I used to call her the church lady.
Yeah.
Saturday Night Live, but that wouldn't be nice.
We've got
great
Kathleen
family.
Herbert in. You're
Sorry?
going to interview her for a second. Before we do, I want you to tell one story about your parents. We were at the Broadmoor. And Rita Pearson was there. I had the good honor of meeting your parents at that time. But you tell a story that still cracks me up. And we all have, parent issues to some degree. But it's funny when you say them.
Well, we were actually in Las Vegas doing training, and somebody said, "Why are you in Las Vegas?" Well, Las Vegas has more poverty than a lot of areas of the country. But my mom and dad, they were sitting in the training, and Rita was training with me and some other people. And after lunch, my dad said to me, "Well, are you going to be on after lunch, or is it going to be Rita?" And I said, "Well, why does it matter?" And my mother said, "Well, if it's you, we're going to go take a nap. If it's Rita, we're going to stay and listen."
Lamar said he loves hearing about how you two connected. And Melanie Melvin says hello to you both.
Thank you. Thank you. And we have Kathleen Herbert here from Australia.
Ruby, I got the time muddled. I mean, it's yesterday. I'm talking to you yesterday. I'm not coping. But I just wanted to say,
does it matter? It's when she said it was beautiful.
I'm here.
See, Australia's ahead of us.
Yes.
Yes. I'm talking yesterday now. I was delivering pictures.
Star Trek episode. We're in yesterday.
Yes. I was talking to a beautiful group of people in a place called Bairnsdale about triple lenses. But it's a privilege to have the opportunity to say congratulations on 25 glorious years, and to let you know how well the work is still ticking down here, down under. And I guess originally we were going to talk about how I came in on frameworks, and my work was originally with schools. And what I'm finding now is schools are very open to the idea of the triple lens and are wanting bridges training so that they can better engage community. But, you know, the core business is the how, why, what of learning still, which was what brought me into it 20 years ago. I think you came to Hobart in 2001.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and that's when I trained and was sort of pretty much on the go since then. And what happened in Australia was they tried to create a national curriculum in schools because we only have 7 states, a little different. So they were trying to have one curriculum. And so there was way too much focus on the what of learning, and people stopped thinking about the how and why. So your work came in here at a wonderful time for schools too, and also way too much focus on curriculum and not well-being of students. So again, the work has just powered along because it reminded teachers of the need of a holistic view of their students. And also now there's a big move towards neuroscience and the understanding of learning through that lens. And again, your work is just segues in beautifully. But Phil, I have been working in the bridges sector too, and trying to inspire people to get into getting ahead, because schools are starting to pick up on their responsibility out of the classroom to connecting with community.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I think there's a natural connection. You know, if you can get the parents going to getting ahead, that's going to do a lot.
Exactly, and schools are looking for some ways to engage their parents.
Mm-hmm.
Very definitely.
Right.
I have been working in the health sector too. I had a big contract with what's called Primary Health Networks, so they have funding, federal funding to roll out training to allied health services. So that's been fascinating for me. That's what I love about your work, Ruby. It's pushed me into so many places I didn't know I was going to get pushed into. And there I was talking with health professionals and dentists and nurses, and the work just translates to where, and everybody says they speak with their clients differently. They understand their people differently. And I like to say to people, be honest about who your people are. Don't pretend they're something else. And that's where your work was so important to us, that we could truly understand the communities we were working with and cater better for them, serve people better.
Thank you. And you guys survived the fire, and you survived the lockdown, and
last year was horrific. So I've decided whatever happens this year is fantastic.
That's a really great note, Kathleen. That's wonderful.
Thank you so much, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so very much for joining us for our 25th anniversary. Thank you, Ruby, for giving us a platform to reinvent our thoughts and some of our beliefs. Phil, for everything that you've done on the opposite side of K-12. There's so many parts. There's so many moving parts to AHA process. It's like its own little universe, and we are all honored to be a part of it.
Definitely, I concur. I thank you as well, Phil. And Ruby, an extra shout out. Again, this has been a chaotic 2020, 2021, but thank you again for giving us tactical right on time so we can wade through this mess and again, keep creating those bridges to make better communities. Appreciate you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to say our goodbyes. I've got my cheese. I've got my champagne. I've got my evening set.
Hey, and in the spirit of getting ahead, it may be champagne or it may be a Corona. Or it may be a piece of cheese, but celebrate 25 years, and may we have 2,500 more years to come.
Thank you so much, Sonia and Ruben and Phil. Thanks to everybody for being online with us.
Definitely our pleasure.